All right, why don't we go ahead and get this started. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. My name is Eugene Turk. I am the Vice President of Business Development at Align, and I want to welcome you to our monthly coach webinar for June 2022. Hope everyone's doing well, and thank you so much for joining us today. This morning, we are thrilled to have Phil Rose with a presentation on how to make time for strategic growth. For those of you who may not be familiar with Phil, he started his life as an engineer with various companies like Rolls-Royce, Audi, VW. But since 2005, he has worked as a strategy consultant and coach. He's accredited with the International Coach Federation as a professional certified coach, and he's a scaling up certified business coach as well. His passion is to inspire people to find their purpose, step up, scale up, and change. He is the founder of Ignium Consulting, through which his mission is to help ambitious, purpose-led businesses create strategies that fully engage people for the journey. Away from work, Phil runs, swims, and cycles. He's completed 10 different marathons, and he also holds a Guinness World Record. Phil, what is that Guinness World Record, by the way?
That Guinness World Record is for the fastest astronomical body, in brackets, the sun, to run a marathon. Guinness World Records are very specific about the type of record you can go for. So I couldn't just run as the sun, it had to be an astronomical body. So other people could also dress as other astronomical bodies, like the Earth or Mars or Venus, and do the same thing if they chose.
Oh my gosh, okay.
Yes, exactly.
He is the host of the Sparks by Ignium podcast, on which he was nice enough to have me on as a recent guest. So thank you again, Phil, for that opportunity. And so we are honored to have Phil present for us this month. As always, just one administrative matter. We want this to be as educational and informational for all of you as possible. So please feel free to pose questions using the chat feature, and we will direct those to Phil at the conclusion of the presentation. Again, thank you everybody for attending this Align Coach webinar, and we will now turn the microphone over to Phil.
Thank you, Eugene. So welcome everybody. Thank you, Eugene. Thank you, Haley, for inviting me to present this morning, this afternoon, wherever you are in the world. It's nice to have some people on this side of the Atlantic. Roger, good to see you here. I know that all of you have been used to having Zoom presentations in the last 2 years. So we're going to do a presentation and a bit of a dog and pony show, so to speak, with me doing the dog and pony show bit here, trying to present to you. And I'm also aware that presenting in this type of media is almost like having a party in the dark. You know, people are out there, you just don't know what they're saying, what they're doing, or whether they're laughing or laughing with you. So if you have questions, please fire them into the chat box so I can see them as we go. I have got a PowerPoint presentation I'm going to give because I think it's the easiest way to get the message across. And I will talk to Eugene about distributing that afterwards as a PDF to make it easy for people. So it will be coming out to you. So if you miss things, feel free to look at it later. And also there'll be a message on there about connecting with me in the future if you have questions about anything I'm about to talk about. And what I'm about to talk about is nothing new. You've all heard some of this before. So I'm not going to teach you anything you don't already know. But as a coach, that's often my role. People don't do the things they know they should be doing. We all know that, because if not, we wouldn't have diet classes. We wouldn't have Alcoholics Anonymous. We wouldn't have other places where people go to change their habits, because in general, we know what we should be doing. We just don't do it. So today is about helping you understand some of those things and helping you go through some of these things around helping you make time for growth. So with that in mind, I'm going to click on the PowerPoint display and put this out here now, and just let's take it from there as we go. Eugene said to me 45 minutes to talk, so I prepared a presentation which will last about that time, but I want to allow plenty of time for conversation at the end. So as Eugene said, my name is Phil Rose. I run a business called Ignium. Ignium is all about helping businesses scale with purpose. And I use that word with purpose because my belief is the people in this world who want to be in businesses that are purpose-led are those who want to be engaged more. We can attract the best talent when we have a purpose above and beyond making money, as people once said. And I'm very much work on this basis that actually those businesses that are really successful are the ones that really mean something to the world. So I use scaling up as a methodology to help you get to where you want to be going in your business. But often a lot of people forget to make time for growth. And I use the word making enough time. I put this picture of a paddleboard up here because I love paddleboarding. I love actually anything to do with the water. I was away swimming last week. And for me, paddleboarding is about getting away from the day to day and doing something different. And when I talk to people about why they want to work with a coach, they often come back to me and say they want more money. But what they come back and thank me for is more time, less stress, and more fun. So I'll ask you now just to think for yourself, which is it you want? More time, less stress, more money, or more fun? And just put those in order, because I think that will give me an indication of where you are. So please just fire that into the chat box. Yeah, Eugene, just checking the chat box is open. So more time, less stress, more money, more fun. What do people really want at this moment in their lives? Please just stick that in the chat box. Hopefully you're going to see some things coming up. More time, more fun, more money. Eugene, nice one. Time, yes, money. Okay, so we're getting a balance there. And I think if we looked at that there, I would say 20% of those answers are money and the rest are more time. And that's key. And my view is actually we can drive more money into our businesses when we get the business processes right. Because actually, if we get more money, actually it's often a result of having more time, more fun, and less stress in the first place. So let's just take you through a few of those things and how they work. So from my perspective, Eugene mentioned before, why do I exist in business? And I talk about it is about inspiration. And I come back to why I use this word inspiration. But for me, it's about inspiring business owners, business leaders, and people to take action, to step up and realize what they can truly achieve in life. Now, a lot of coaches might say the same thing, but my belief is that's because what we do. We're here as coaches because we believe we've got a talent we can bring, and actually about helping and listening to people who often need that support. I was with a client this morning and they were talking about why do I coach? And I always go back to that view before that actually I coach because I see other people struggling with things that they should find easy. And it's not about remedial work. It's not about those people who are struggling because they're bad at something. It's about because they want to step up to become even better. So those businesses that are scaling up clients, actually the ones that are doing really well, they just want to become even better. Jim Collins talked about this in his book, Good to Great. How do you become great when you're already good? And that's about coaching. So Eugene's already mentioned who I am. I started life as an engineer, and I use that as a sense there because Rolls-Royce, fascinating to business to work with. But the key was when we were producing engines back in 1996, when I was in that business, I used to say engines because I worked for a jet engine manufacturer. We produced them, they were too late, they were over spec, they over cost, and Boeing didn't like that. So we had to look at how we re-engineered what we did, made it work better. And actually, that's been the running thread through all of my work. How do I improve performance? Because Rolls-Royce gave me that view on how do we get better performance faster. And as a scaling up coach, I do the same thing now. And that's what I want to bring to you in the next 40 minutes. And all I'm going to do is unpack my toolbox. Because as a coach, we have tools. And I think about the tools that we use as being a mix of a number of different things. But the problem is most people, when they have a toolbox, if all they've got is a hammer, everything looks like a nail. It may be an English expression, but I think you might understand where I'm coming from there. So the hammer that sits on my toolbox, actually, I delve in below that to find out what other tools I can bring out to help you develop your business at this time. And there's 6 C's I bring out and 2 P's. And this might be quite strange, but I'll show you what this means, because my view is you've got to get this right in your business to help you do what you're doing. And I talk about in any business, we need to get that balance between coaching and consulting. As a manager, as a leader, you need to be stepping onto the coaching world rather than just consulting. Consulting is about telling someone how to do something when you've already done it yourself. Coaching is about asking questions. And we all know to develop the best teams in the world, we have to ask questions rather than tell. But we know also sometimes people don't know the answers, which is why they come to us in the first place. So we need to get the balance between coaching and consulting. Equally, cultural and commercial. I'm going to touch on this a bit later. So for those people who said they want more money, that's a pure commercial outcome. I can come into any business and increase your revenues, decrease your cost, you make more money. But I know those who go further are the ones that get the culture right. They're the ones who set up the business for success by engaging their people at heart. And when you engage people at heart, you get their hearts and minds. They come to work not just for your money, they want to be part of something. Context and content. This is a story I learned from a company called Sherlock's a few years ago about setting context. I'm going to explain what that means later. Too often we're stuck, we can't see the wood for the trees. And then this final one is about purpose and prosperity. I talked about that I work with businesses who are eager to scale with purpose. My view is you can have both purpose and prosperity. You can make money and you can do good with it in the world of what you're doing. So to me, it's getting that balance. And I think that's what engages people who want to come to work with us and for us. Does that make sense? Just give me a quick yes in the chat box. Make sure we're on the right track before we go too far. Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Haley. Mohammed, thank you. Perfect. Thanks, Tim. Right, so what's here? So I'm going to use this word growth. We're all here today to talk about scaling and growing your business, but I talked about that we're making time for growth, because growth has a different meaning to lots of people. So if I don't know if it, most of you are probably sitting on this call or one-on-one, but if you've got a team with you, or if you imagine you've got a team, I'd like you to consider this next question. And the question is, what does growth mean to you in your business? Because unless we get clear on that, we can't actually move our business forwards. So just take a second and just stick in the chat box. What does growth mean to you? Just one or two words. What does growth mean to you? Thanks, Eugene. Success, yeah, develop myself and my team. Thank you. More customers, more profit relationships, freedom. Thanks, Scott. Development, Andrew. Thank you. Increased business. Okay, thank you. Continued relevance. I like it, Mike. That's a different one. That's growing top line by transactions. Yeah, okay. Better ROI. Thank you. Now, let me ask you a question. Thank you for all of those. If you're now sitting in your business, and we ask those questions about what does it mean, because actually a lot of people, they discuss what growth means. And here's my thoughts. Growth can be many things. It can be growth for your business. It can be revenue growth. It can be profit growth. It can be valuation growth in terms of how to grow the value of your business. It could be capacity growth, and I'll talk what capacity means in a minute. It could be market share. It could be personal growth, as we mentioned just now, in terms of relevance, Mike, when you say that as well, possibly. But actually, it could be growth in the economy. Where are we going? And we know there's a bit of a stagnation point at this moment worldwide. So the answer is, it depends. So if you were in a team of people and you actually needed to agree what growth means, with all those questions now, how long do you think it would take you to agree on that one concept of what growth means? And it's a rhetorical question, because the answer is, it will take you a long time. I worked with the board of a company a few years back, and I stood on stage and said to them, we're going to talk about growth. And I asked them all to get around the table and say what growth means. And they all came back with answers like you have. The issue was none of them were consistent on what they were trying to achieve. And it actually led to a bit of roadblock, because they were all fighting for the same thing, but in different ways. So the key is we need to give you some tools to help you understand what growth means up front. So to me, my context for today is business growth in today's climate, because we know in today's climate, things are a bit different for us wherever we are in the world. And I always like to show these pictures here. I love being in the mountains. Eugene mentioned about me running and cycling and swimming. I also love skiing and being outdoors. So I love these pictures. This is a picture here of a wonderful mountain that my brother's climbed a number of times. And if you get the answer for it later, stick it in the chat box. But if you look at it, most people think of their vision as the top of a mountain. Although in scaling up, we started to use word now actually to say, maybe the vision is not the top of the mountain. Maybe it's the ocean that the river runs through to, because we know that rivers find the path of least resistance. Whereas we often talk about scaling a mountain. That sounds hard work. So anyway, we'll come back to that later, but I'm going to use the mountain for now, because that's often what a vision is. But we know also that last month, last year, 2 years ago, our strategy was a straight line. This is a picture from Death Valley. And if anyone's not been, I recommend you go there one day, because actually you suddenly realize the roads are very straight. They go on for a long way. But actually we have strategies like that, which are just a straight line growth. It's all about today, tomorrow, the vision and your BHAG, getting you to the future. And actually, we know the world doesn't work like that, because obviously over the last few years, COVID came down, the mist came down, our strategies changed. We had to adapt. And that straight road became a meandering mountain trail with the mist coming down as well. So what used to be a straight line strategy got cancelled. And the key is, how do we now achieve that when we're too busy firefighting, getting things done? The key is, I want you to bring back to 3 tools that you can use to help you achieve your growth. And the context for me is clear in the context. So 3 tools I want to bring out to you today. This word context I mentioned just now. I want to introduce you to my friend Rise, underlined by C, and I'll explain what that means, and then talk about your capacity for growth. Now, that may not mean much to you at this moment, but in the next 30 minutes, I hope to give you the answer for what that means. So in terms of growth, let's just think about capacity. We're going to play a little game to start with. So first tool, I want you to just think about getting on the same page. Because I said to you just now, if you're in a business and you have to make decisions about what growth means, we talked about making time for growth. Sometimes we're too busy to make time. We're too busy doing the things we have to be doing. We're too busy running around driving revenue. Whereas actually we need to be doing something else, because could be the key thing. But if you've got a board, if you've got a team, if you've got investors, they need to know you're on the same page. And actually it can free up time when you know you can be doing things together. So let's just play a little game to start with. I want you to use the chat box for this, because if I do this in front of an audience, it works really well. But let's just try this here. So I want you to think in the chat box, when I use the word, ask the word red, what comes to mind? Please just stick it in the chat box. What comes to mind when I use the word red? Anything that's fine. Danger. Thank you, Scott. Anything else? Negative. Thank you. Fire. Falling prices. Stop sign. Wonderful. Thanks, Anne. Matador. Love that. Trouble. Danger. Okay, so we've got a few different answers there, and the answers now coming out. Thank you. So here's a question. If you're now the board of a company, how long would it take you to decide which of those is the right answer? Which of those is the right answer? Trouble, matador, danger, stop. Which is the right answer? The answer is, as a board, you could go round, because they're all right. Thanks, Mohammed. But they're also, if I'm the one who speaks loudest in a company, it's my word that goes. So if I say it's a matador, it's a matador. If I'm the CEO, often people don't challenge each other because they're too worried that no one else is challenging. So this is where context comes in. It can save you time. So in my language here, when I was thinking of the word red, I was thinking about something specific. What I was thinking of, I want you to type the answer in the chat box as soon as I put this up here. What comes to mind with the color red when I say that my context is traffic light? And the answer is stop. Perfect. How quick was that? We know the answer as soon as we do it there, because in most cultures, except when I last drove in India, traffic lights red means stop. And I don't mean that to be offensive to any Indians. I just love driving in India when there's no rules around the road. So we know clearly when we have a context of traffic light, the answer is stop with red. It becomes clear. Let's just try it again. I'm going to try one more time because I think it could be an interesting one. Okay, some examples of fruit. I want to build a fruit cocktail and I want to put some fruit into my bowl of fruit cocktails. Which are the most appropriate fruits to go into my fruit bowl right now? Answer in the chat box, please. Pineapple, thank you, Tim. Grapes. Okay, that's wonderful. Thank you, Haley. Any other answers go in my chat box? Watermelon, apples. Thank you, Eugene. Okay, so here we go. Bananas, thank you. I have my little bowl of fruit here, and in my fruit bowl, I have banana, I have a lemon, I have a kiwi, beautiful English strawberry, and a satsuma. So the answer again is, which is the right fruit to go in that fruit bowl? Which is the right fruit? How long would it take you to decide? Rhetorical question again, because actually you'd never decide because everyone would be arguing for what's right for them. But here, Eugene mentioned earlier that I'm a runner. I do a lot of physical exercise. So my context for my fruit cocktail at this moment is energy. So which fruit is the most important fruit to go into my fruit cocktail now? Through the inner bowl. There we go. Thank you, Anne. See, wasn't clear about what I was trying to do in that case. So in that case, it was a fruit cocktail with my fruit bowl. And actually, true for me, the context was banana. The word was banana, because I know that I need energy for my fitness training tonight. So again, I've just given you two very simple techniques. I like playing that game because it's really simple, because we can all find some fruit to work with and say to each other, what's the key? But the answer is, why is that important in business? Because actually, when we have a context, we can be clear about it. So we now know if we've got a context, what's the context for our business? It sets the purpose for our business. It answers the question, why? If anyone hasn't listened to Simon Sinek's TED Talk, you need to go and look at that. But think about why is the thing that sits at the importance there. Question there, Mohammed, just how can you get a context that all people agree on? So here's the question. When you've got a board of people, actually, the key bit here is actually getting people to understand what's your context and getting a discussion going in the business. Because when you have a discussion going, actually, you can say, okay, where do we all need to go? And then it's about agreeing that context. It's simple as that. When we can start agreeing that context and having a discussion up front, our decisions become easier. So it's all about saying to each other, why are we here? What do we want to be doing? What's the reason for our business at the moment? And then agreeing on that context, framing it up so that the CEO or those who speak loudest don't have the final say, but actually you can discuss what it is, because we often get stuck into the content of a business, what's in the fruit bowl, rather than the specific fruit I need to be eating at that time. Does that make sense? Thank you. So let's think through this thing. Thanks, Mohammed. So fruit bowl, there we go. And there we go. Hey, look, there's I forgot this slide was in here. This is my bit of indulgence here. Because my context when I was running my marathon was actually about two things. One was getting my name in the Guinness Book of Records. The other was raising money. I set out to raise money for a wonderful charity in the UK called Children with Cancer. And my context was about doing that. So it got me out of bed every morning, 5:30 in the morning, to go and run my training miles for 16 weeks in a row. Because I knew that I had a goal to achieve. I set the world record view of what I wanted to get to as the context. I also set Children with Cancer as raising money as to help me as well. Bring those two together. I had a massive course of action to get up and do things. So I put that in there as a bit of indulgence for me, but also to say, when you do set yourself a context, actually getting out of bed in the morning becomes really easy, even if it is to run in the cold and rain in the UK. So let's think through here, making time for growth. We talked about context. That's the first tool. Get clear on your context and then you can do things. I actually like to color code my diary, and I'm going to explain what that means in a minute. But when I talk about purpose, we can understand purpose, we can understand a vision, but we often have to make time for it. How do we make time for strategy? To create it, to create and execute it. That's the biggest issue that a lot of people have because they don't make time for it. We all have busy schedules, or so we think. So my view is, let's look at number 2 tool. And this is a really simple tool, which I call Rise Up Over C. So what does Rise Up Over C mean? It's all about getting a balance between a number of different things. So Rise, I want you to champion this thing, and you'll understand where C comes from in a minute. It's all about revenue. It's about infrastructure and systems. It's about equity, and it's about culture. Because if you get those in your business, you know you're on the right track. Now you might say, hey, what's this got to do with that time management and developing things? And the answer is simple, because actually it helps you understand where you're spending your time right now and how that becomes better for you in your business. So let's just think about that as a story. So in the beginning, when people set up their business, they're good at one of two things. If I can talk to people like Eugene is a wonderful person about account management, about developing relationships and sales. My father, when he set up his business in 1982, was brilliant at the other thing. He was brilliant at building something. He was an engineer. He loved creating things in the marine industry. He learned to go and sell things, but building it technically was what he was brilliant at. And then he had to deliver it, because actually we can always sell something, and it's only when the rubber hits the road when we deliver it to the customer that we actually start thinking about things differently. So market it, build it, deliver it. And then some people start servicing customers and clients. And the key is, as businesses grow, they need to start doing something else, which is accounting. They need to bring in some more money. They need to develop relationships. They need to develop their admin. They need to develop their IT systems. They need to develop HR if they're becoming more than a one-person business. They need to develop the legal aspects, something that Eugene is wonderful at as well. Compliance, it sits within that. But these things here take time, because actually it's all about developing those systems. And most business owners are great at one of those things, but not the other. So the key is, here's a question for you. This thing here develops revenue for your business. This bit over here, infrastructure and systems, it's all about costs. And question for you accountants in the room, what's the answer? Revenue minus cost. Quick answer in the chat box. What do you get if you take revenue minus cost? It's not a trick question, but everyone says the wrong answer because they always say the answer of profit. And I'm not an accountant, so I can say these things. And I love playing this game because the answer is revenue minus cost actually gives you one thing, and it gives you a surplus of which you can choose what to do. And after that is left your profit. And don't come back at me and argue on that one. Just take it this moment and understand why. So you can choose what to do with that surplus of energy and time and money. And the great businesses, those ones who scale to higher heights, are the ones that spend, thanks, Patricia. The ones who aspire to a higher heights have a purpose above and beyond making money, doing something different. They have a clear vision of where they're going. They understand the product they're putting into the marketplace. And it's not just today's product, it's product 1, 2, 3, and 4. They're really well positioned in the marketplace as well. People know who they are. And finally, they have clear channels to market, distribution channels, people that can lead them into their current market. And that makes their sales and marketing really easily, because actually it's all developed. But it's underpinned by this word culture. So culture is key, because my view is that's the foundation. And we all know this, but a lot of people don't do anything about it, getting the foundations right in any business. Because this bit over here drives equity. And we know that long term, that's what most people want in the business. But here's what the problem comes though. Often we understand ourselves, where are we working? Where are you working right now? Because unless we know where we're spending our time, how can we know what we should be doing? So in this business model here, simply revenue, costs, equity, and culture. They're the 4 elements that make up, in a contextual term, any business. But let me ask you a question. If you go back to your childhood days when we all had coloring pens, and before we all had Apple iPhones or whatever device you have on your desk, we might have had a paper diary. And if you were to get your coloring pens out and looking at this picture here and colored in your diary, red, blue, black, or green, I wonder what the predominant color in your diary would be. If you were to look at over a month or a year, what would I see? Just stick it in the chat box. What would your diary look like? Red, blue, black on Mohammed, blue. Thank you. All about the revenue, short term, driving that revenue growth. Thank you. And I color accounting, admin, HR and IT and legal and compliance in red, because to me, it's the lifeblood of a business. Scott, black. Thank you. It's all about the future. It's all about building equity. Thank you. Any other answers there? Thank you. Okay, thank you. Blue, Eugene. So it's all about driving that revenue. So the key is, by looking at that, we can understand where our business is going. But what happens if we get too much of a focus on one of those areas at the expense of another? If we're focused too much on admin, we don't make enough revenue. If we're focused too much on equity, value growth, we're not delivering the revenue. If we're focused too much on culture, what happens then? We might have a lovely place to work, but we make no money and the business goes nowhere. So the answer is, we need to get balance between them all. But as CEO of your business and your life, we need to get clear, where do we spend our time? There's time and a place for doing each one, but I see too many business owners spending too long in the red and the blue at the expense of the black. I expect every business owner or CEO at a point in their journey to be spending at least 20% of their time, 1 day per week, in the black, because that leverages time for the future. It's all about adding value. If you're just stuck in the weeds doing things, the business doesn't move far. I've just started reading a great book, and it's a great book that I started reading first in 1996. And if you haven't read it, I recommend you go and look at it. But The Goal by Eli Goldratt is worth checking out, because actually it helps you understand how businesses could be set up for what I'm going to talk about in the next stage as well. But really understanding where you spend your time, where you focus your energy, because that gives you the value for the future. But just by looking at your diary as well, we can also understand where should we be spending our time. The Goal by Eli Goldratt. I'll stick it in the notes afterwards, but Eli Goldratt is the author of that. It's actually a book that I first read in 1996, so it's nice to go back for it. I found a first edition copy. So the answer here is that we need to understand ourselves. Where do we spend our time? Because actually, that's the biggest time saver for us all. If we're too trapped in the red and blue, which a lot of business owners find themselves in at this time when the economy is changing, we get wrapped up in that and we don't make long-term value. We're making short-term decisions about sales and building and delivering the product at the expense of the future value of our business. And I really must emphasize that, because actually spending your time in the black is the key to the successful businesses. That's where the future growth comes from. That's where the scaling up clients that we work with in scaling up really spend their time. It's not about doing the job. It's as Michael Gerber said in the E-Myth Revisited. And again, if you've not read that book, it's worth looking back at. That was the first book my accountant gave me in 2004, the E-Myth Revisited. Michael E. Gerber talks about working on the business, not in it. Working in the black is key. So Scott, you got it right there, providing you've got the right time about spent in there. But we have to make time to do that. So let's talk about the number 3 tool. And I'm just rattling through some things here. So go with this one. So this number 3 tool, this is about the word capacity. And capacity here has a number of different meanings for me and other people. I like to think of capacity as about understanding what your business can deliver. So let me give an example here. If this is your business, this is a cup, it's a standard cup. This is what most businesses are. They're an empty vessel of which you can put revenue into. But what I say to people actually is the key is, how full is your cup at this moment? If you imagine your business as a cup and you're running your business, what does it feel like? Because the revenue in your business is represented by the water within your business. So if I think about that now and think about an empty cup, 0 revenue, full cup, 100% revenue. Just think about your revenue today. You know what your revenue number is, but how often do you know what your capacity number is? What's the maximum possible revenue you could achieve given a utopia, if everything was working smoothly? And the problem most people have is they know what their revenue is, but they don't know what the top of the cup looks like. If you're in a widget manufacturing company, you might know how many products you can put out per hour. You might know how many products you can ship per hour. But come back to the book, The Goal. What Eli Goldratt talks about there is actually understanding what the constraint on your business is. because you might be able to produce 100 products per hour, but if you can't ship 100, can only ship 80, your actually maximum capacity is only 80. And there's part of the thing about time management. We often run around looking for a full cup like this. Now, as an English man, I drink my beer out of a pint glass. And if this was my pint glass and it was handed me, what's the feeling I'm going to have? And I use that word of feeling because a lot of our decisions in business are based on feelings. So I've now got a pint glass and it's full to the brim. It's just about trickling over. Yeah, I might think I've got value for money, but the key is I can't hold it there for too long. So I'm trying to hold a pint glass that's full. Sure enough, I'm going to spill it. You're right. It's too full. Thank you, Scott. And that's the problem most people have. They try and run their business on the brink at full. And we know that doesn't happen. So my view is we need to come back and we need to run our business a bit like this glass here with the water level just below the top. And I like to say actually the prime bit is actually to run about 80 to 90% full. Why 80 to 90%? Because then we allow for anything else that goes wrong. I was sharing with Eugene today, I've just had to go for a doctor's appointment very briefly. So I had to rush to the doctor's before doing this webinar. But luckily I'd prepared the slides. I went to the doctor and actually in the UK, the doctor managed to fit me in really quickly. But the point was, if I'd filled my diary to the brim, I wouldn't have been able to fit the doctor in. But to me, health and fitness is my number one point. You've got to understand the constraints of what's going on in your business to understand it. So understanding where you come from and understanding that 80% or 90% is where you want to be, but not 100%. Too many businesses try and run at 100%, and we know they risk falling over. So are we with me so far? Is that making sense? You're going to ask the question, where's this going from a time management point of view? And the answer is, let's think about that. Thanks, Scott. So let's think about that now. If I've got a business now that's actually only running at 50 or 60%, which that class is trying to represent, I'm potentially turning over 50% of my potential capacity. But often in business, we don't reflect on that. We think we're busy, busy, busy. How often have you been on time management courses and you find people actually running around saying, I'm flat out busy, I have no time to do anything. And actually what it is, they're just inefficient. They're not making good use of their time. They haven't got the productivity steps in place. Now, I'm not going to go through and help you on productivity and time management. Well, I am, but I'm not going to teach you some of the time management techniques because you've all been on those courses before. You've read the books, you know the principles. We just don't do it. So actually the key there, in fact, so Mohammed just raised the point there about potential and actual capacity. You're right. Potential capacity, as a coach, I could be working 52 weeks of the year, 5 days a week or 7 days a week, earning the maximum amount. But I know that's not realistic for me. So I come back to understand what my realistic capacity is. I want to take time off. I'm off to the US next week, and I know that I want a 4-week holiday with my family because that's important to me, being out of the country, doing other things. So thanks, Mohammed, for that. But the key is, if we understand our business, understand where our current revenue is, and understand what the top of our glass is like, we can understand the things we need to do to fill our glass up. And often we're too busy doing that. And I come back to this point here. Businesses are run on emotions. Everyone says it's a logical world. And if you talk to any accountant, they say the same. But everybody knows we buy on emotions, we justify intellectually. Every car you buy, every house you buy, every boat you buy, boat, maybe that's all emotions. It's all about what you can do with it. So how about we could run our business on emotions? How would we like our business to feel in the first place? Because if I come back to my glass and say I want to run my business at 70%, how would that feel? My word is that's manageable. Because if I've got a business that's running at just 70%, it's manageable. It feels comfortable. Equally, some people want to run their business flat out. If I talk to a venture capitalist, they might say it's all about maximizing the money, sweating the assets. Stress, manic. So make a choice now about how you want your business to be, and then think about your life in general. Because as a coach, I always say you have a choice. And you have a choice about how you want to be running your business, because that helps you show up in the world in the way you want to be. So people say to me, well, how do I do that? And the answer is, well, first of all, we need to understand what the top of our glass looks like, maximum capacity, by doing some calculation, doing some mathematics, and actually then understand where we are today and our current revenue. But also we can then talk that into our own business, because we can say, well, how do I grow if that's the case? Well, the point is we fill our cup to the maximum theoretical revenue that you want to get to, maybe 80%, and then you go and get a bigger cup. And a bigger cup, I mentioned at the beginning, for those eagle-eyed amongst you, which I said there's only 6 ways to grow a cup, but there's hundreds of ways of filling a cup. Because if I could fill a cup right now, I can go anything. I can go on productivity course. I can develop new IT systems. I can buy Salesforce. I can put new other CRM systems in. I can use Xero for my accounting. I can develop new Microsoft tools. All helps me improve efficiencies to fill my cup up. But there's only 6 ways to grow the cup to get to the next stage contextually. Now, you may come back and argue to me, say, actually, hey, there's more than 6 ways, but they all fit specifically under one of these 6 headings. And this is key. And I'm not going to go into this specifically now because this is not about how to grow your cup. We can talk about this another day. But to me, there's some key bits here. And even if you think of you as an individual, if you want to go and get a better salary and earn more, you might need to position yourself differently in the marketplace so you can command a higher price. I talk about that as a key one there because I think that's one of the key things a lot of business owners forget to do. They think they're in a cost competitive market and therefore all they can do is reduce their prices to compete. My view is increase your prices, change your positioning, and change the way you show up in the world. That drives revenue, future time. So we can talk about these another time. But the key here is today is to think about what you can do individually. And my view is, there's a lot of words on this slide here. If you think about getting more revenue from your business, we can increase our productivity in the same way we can do for ourselves. Because how many of you come into work in the mornings and your cup is full? You're running day to day, bouncing from one thing to the next thing because somebody's calling or a customer wants things. For all those people who said they were in the blue all the time, often it's driven by the demands of the customer. And therefore, we're having to deal with those things, batching one thing to another. But sometimes we need to take time out. I was talking to a client yesterday about actually the benefits of meditation, about taking time out, because he had a frazzled morning. And we just sat down a coaching call and did a 5-minute meditation just to get him in the space of having a proper conversation. He was able to go and do a lot more work in the afternoon, having taken just 5 minutes out of his 24-hour day to meditate and understand himself. And this is the key to actually getting your own capacity understood, because our own capacity is 24 hours or 168 hours in a week. But we know we don't want to be working that. So as Mohammed raised just now, what's your realistic capacity? It's about setting your targets, setting your goals. If you aim to leave at 7 o'clock in the evening, you're going to leave at 7 o'clock in the evening. If you aim to leave at 8, you'll leave at 8. What happens if you aim to leave at 4? What happens if you aim to take Fridays off to have time to go on the golf course, go to the beauty spa, go for a pampering day, whatever that might mean to you, go for a run? We can do those things, but often we don't think we can because we're too busy. And the key is we need to set some context, set some priorities. If anyone's worked with a scaling up coach before, you know we talk about rocks, the rocks in the glass. And that phrase comes from a lot of work from Stephen Covey, when we talk about rocks in the glass, and we talk about the pint glass again. And my view is that's the key, because we need to put our own rocks in first. So in scaling up, we talk about our one-page personal plan. One-page personal plan, because actually it's all about understanding the 6 Fs. In fact, on the plan, there's only 5 Fs, but I always add an extra one, which is fun. We always talk about friends. We talk about family. We talk about faith. We talk about finances. We talk about fitness. And I believe fun comes in there as well, because when we understand those things and start prioritizing our time, we can start making time for our own growth as well as our business growth. Because we all know that we can chart better when we're working better as a team, individually, and together. So what's this all about? The key here is actually it's all about a light bulb thing for me, because actually when you start thinking about getting a bigger glass, there's a key here for most businesses. They think we need to go and get a bigger boat. If anyone remembers that Jaws film from the 1970s or 80, the quote was, I think we're going to need a bigger boat. And my view is a lot of people think that in their own business as well. Because actually you don't need a bigger boat. What you actually need is to go and clear the closet. Because in the UK, there's been a growth in the storage market. And I'm fancy for this because we run a storage business as one of our other businesses. But self-store facilities run on one thing specifically. They run on the fact that too many people keep too much rubbish in the closet, and they don't have the heart to clear it out. They don't want to get more productive. So I ask you now as a business leader, what rubbish are you keeping in your closet that you need to clear out to free up time for yourself? Because that's the key. It's not about going to get a bigger boat. It's about clearing up what you've got to clear your own capacity. Because I don't believe anybody is 100% busy. Sometimes they're just inefficient or just imagining they're stuck in that loop. So the key is here, helping you understand how full is your glass today? How many hours are you really working? How many hours do you want to be working? Ask yourself how efficient you are. Because I talked about capacity from a business perspective, but it applies equally to you in your own business, your own life as well. Because if you're running, holding your glass full, like my pint glass full of beer earlier, you're going to spill it. So my view is set your levels, set your understanding, create the priority. I asked you at the beginning, more time, less stress, more money, and more fun. Be aware of what you're putting in there. If you want more time, do what you can to drive more time in your business. If you want less stress, it probably comes with more time as well. But sometimes having more time might drive more stress because you're going to put more effort in to do things. But just understand the implications of every decision you make. Those who want more money, hey, does more money come at the expense of family and friends and fitness and finance and faith? The answer is often not, but it often takes over from other people. So be clear about how your priorities are driving for you, what the actions in your life are. I mentioned earlier about your one-page personal plan, and equally in scaling up, we often talk about the one-page strategic plan because that sets the priorities for your business for the next 12 months, 180 days and 90 days. What are your rocks? What's the thing that needs to go in your business first and in your life first? And what are you neglecting? Too many business owners I see neglect health. They're too busy, busy, busy. And often we need to understand what is it we love and what do we loathe in our business. And coming back to my red, blue, black and green earlier, it's about context to say, where do I need to be working? So for those of you who had a clarity around where you're working at the moment, where is it you need to be working in the future? What can you delegate? How can you develop systems? Because when you can develop those systems in your business, you can take time to do the things that are important, but you have to get your context right first. And this is why I come back to that word context, which I stuck out there at the beginning. It comes back to context because context is key. When you don't understand the context, you have no priorities. You don't understand your why, and you can't prioritize anything because actually whatever anyone throws at you becomes the most important thing of the day. But set your priorities. Again, I come back to that book, The Goal. In the beginning of it, they're trying to ship an order. The chairman of the business comes out and says, we must ship this order now. But actually, no one's understood what the context is. Why is that happening for that individual? Why is the customer shouting so loud? And they strip out a machine and put another part on, only to find that was the wrong part. So the key here is get clear on your context of the business. Get clear on your priorities. Because when you set your priorities, you get real clarity. And having clarity is the thing that makes your time go well. It enables you to get your balance in your life. Your pint glass of life becomes easy to manage. And it's less likely to spill it. You're going to make more time for your strategic growth because you've got time in your diary to do those things. And that to me is the key. And I talk about this from contextual diary management. So I talked earlier about if you were to color your diary and what color it would look like. But actually, here's about being proactive. Take your Outlook diary or your Gmail diary, your Google diary, and color it in. Set context to it. When do you want to be spending your time doing things? Develop a cadence to it. I color my diary in red, blue, black, and green. I let clients into Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. My Friday is about black time. My Monday is about black and red, and blue and light blue, which is marketing. But I'm really clear about what happens there. And I'm strict with it. My PA knows not to put clients on a Friday. Because if I neglect that one day a week, that 20% of my time, I know I'm not going to build future revenue. I'm good for today, but I won't be able to manage it in the future. Having a context my video meetings, setting a context my video calls. Black time is key. But actually, we have to understand how full our glass is in the first place. Because I know now that having a full glass means you're going to have less chance to manage your diary in the future because you're always busy, busy, busy. So there's my 3 tools for you today: context and content, understand the vision and growth from a capacity point of view, and understand what red, blue, black, and green can do for you from a point of view of revenue, infrastructure and systems, equity, underlined by culture, the green element, because that's what drives your success in the future. Good luck. That's all I've got to say for today. Eugene said 45 minutes. 45 minutes. There we go.
Thank you, Phil. That was fantastic. Scott, I saw that you actually had a hand up earlier. I don't know if you still have a question. I'm happy to allow you to talk. You do not. Very good.
Let me come up there.
Yeah, but for those of you who do have questions, please feel free to use the chat, or if you'd like to hop on and speak up, let me know. I'll be happy to turn on that ability for you. I have a question for you, Phil. Great presentation, but what I sort of initially thought is, do you factor into your schedule the unexpected and sort of the thing, you know, the fires that come up? And it's great to be so disciplined to have clients on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday be your black day, Monday is your black and blue and light blue day. But what happens when all of a sudden some emergency arises and that schedule sort of gets thrown out the window? And so how do you factor in making time, or at least allocating some time to sort of the unexpected?
Yeah, great point. So there's two things on that. One is I have a friend who works for an oil company, and when you go into the oil company, they talk about accidents only happen when people make mistakes. And that oil company ran a tanker aground many years ago, and their view is they need to clean up all those mistakes, improve the systems to stop mistakes happening. And I think if you look at any system, yes, there's potential for mistakes, but actually we need to put the system in place to stop mistakes happening. Now, we can't control what clients are doing. I take that point. But actually, how can we educate our clients? How can we help them build better systems for themselves? So that's one answer to it. Actually, mistakes only happen when we've let them happen. But the view is, again, if my cup is running 80% full, I've drunk something now, or 70% full, we have space in our diary to do those things. Because actually, I can manage my diary and say, right, what's the maximum number of clients I want to be working with? How often do I want to be working? How many hours a day do I want to work? Now, often people say, hey, we just got to work flat out and do things. But we really need to understand what's our priorities. And if we want to be running, we have 20%. So if we're running a business at 80%, we then have 20% available to do things. But people say to me, well, how do you run a business at 80%? It's all about balancing supply and demand, getting people on the seats with you, getting the right talent in the room, developing the systems to do it. So we can always manage problems when they come up. We can always manage the firefighting because we have the space in our diary to do it. We're drilled on how to do it. We've prepped for it in the first place. That's the key to it. It's putting the systems in place before it becomes an emergency. It's a bit of the Stephen Covey urgent important matrix. We need to work on the important now before they become urgent, and then we'll have space in our diary to do things.
Phil, there's a question from Mohammed who sort of piggybacks off that topic, and that is, how do you understand what is filling your glass?
Yeah, great point. And Mohammed, you've put a point there about understanding and recording what occupies your day. So I was with a client this morning, an architecture practice. They're a relatively small company, but I love working with them. So I was talking about an exercise I do where basically I asked them to do an old time and motion study, to have a piece of paper or using something, there's an app you can drive called Toggle, but having that piece of paper and writing down what you do every day. And every time you change activity, just write it down and just write down how long it takes you to do it. And then color code it red, blue, black, or green. And at the end of a period, which could be 2 weeks or a month or even a day, just look at what's in your diary and look at where those things are which are non-value added for your business. Where are you spending time dealing with IT emergencies? Microsoft Outlook crashes again. Gmail won't let me in. I can't find my passwords. And look at those things and then say, okay, what is it you need to do to improve on those things? So as an example, I ran a small business for many years. And actually one thing we didn't do was get in an IT support company. We tried to do it ourselves. That wasn't where we were paid. We looked at our timesheet and realized we were spending a lot of time dealing with just small IT stuff that could be outsourced. Cost me 30 a month and we put it out somebody else. So if your priorities change, do you need to start the exercise again? No, you don't. That's a good question. You just keep it as a track, because if your priorities change, it's understanding why have your priorities changed. What's changed them in the first place? Yes, it could have been pandemic, it could have been other things happening in your supply chain, but the key is just understanding what's happened and then understanding what systems you need to put in place to manage that. When I worked in the aerospace industry, we used to do a lot of risk management work, because if we didn't do risk management, we'd always be caught out. So when planes fell out of the sky, which is unfortunate, we had to understand what caused it. And we'd do a risk exercise, we'd understand it. But the problem was it was always the risk you hadn't assessed that would always cause the problems. But when you come back to the thing about priorities changing, it's all about understanding what could stop you and then understanding from it, saying, what do I need to do differently? What systems do I need to put in place to manage my priorities? Hopefully that helps, Mohammed.
Phil, follow-up question, because when you were talking about the I guess it's rise over C is the equation.
Yeah, rise over C, yes.
Yes. And so as a business owner, when I am looking at the revenue, the infrastructure and systems, the equity and the culture, isn't that the point of me hiring people, is to delegate some of those things to others? And
yeah.
So isn't that the exercise that then helps me focus more time on the thing that I need to be doing as the business owner and leader, because I know that there are others handling the other stuff?
Yeah, great point. So if I just pull that slide up, just to answer that question, I think you've hit the nail on the head there, actually, Eugene. The key is to outsource these things, because as a business owner, I often, most technical business owners, because they're good at selling or they're good at doing, dive back into the blue when it gets busy. They're busy, they're on the tools, they're out selling, they're out building the product. but I need them to step up. And the only way they can step up is by delegating and empowering their team. So in functionality, we've run a functional accountability chart and a process accountability chart. I get them to look at that and say, what is it you as Mr. Business Owner or Mrs. Business Owner shouldn't be doing, so you can put other people in place to do it. So then you can step up into that black space, into purpose, vision, product, and positioning and channels, going out having conversations with clients. That's the key element. Now, everybody has an element of red, blue, black, and green in their diary. You can't get away from that. Even the best CEOs still have some red to do. But the key is to understand who can you get in that's better at doing the job than you are. That's the key.
Great.
Does that make sense?
It does. Phil, there were some questions posted in the chat. Mohammed
Okay.
said, what if what's filling your cup is due to external factors, example, your boss?
Yeah, okay. So Scott, I'll come to yours in a second because it links as well. So yeah, external factors, your boss. We have to start educating our bosses as well. So if your boss is actually delegating down all the time, hey, that's sometimes the case. But actually, this is about setting up priorities and context for businesses. Get the culture right. When I put rise over C, culture is key. Can you push back on your boss? Can you say, no, that's not appropriate for me? What do you need me to drop to enable that? Now, that might be really hard when you're sitting in a business. And Mohammed, I don't know where you're based in the world. I worked with some businesses in the Middle East recently. And I know sometimes it is hard to push back on your boss when they're dropping things on you. But the key is we need to develop the culture there where we can start developing systems in our business so our boss doesn't just drop things, or we understand functionally what's appropriate, because our boss is a functional part of that business. So they have a role, you have a role. Make sure you all understand who does what. Because one of the biggest problems I find for any business is when they don't have functional accountability, things either drop through the crack and don't get done, or two people pick it up, or the boss doesn't know who to give it to and just gives it to the first person who comes along. So Mohammed, I would say the first thing actually is what's filling your cup. Let's understand what those things are. If there's lots of things coming down from your boss all the time that are not on your job list, just look at what you should be doing and understand where you should be doing things. Differently, what systems you need to put in place to do them, or how do you, now take this, it might be hard to do. How do you educate your boss on how to develop things for himself as well? I take it that could be a hard thing.
Yeah, one of the terms that I use is how good are you at managing up? So
yeah.
Obviously you've got your managers, your supervisors that are sort of delegating work to you, but how good are you? And this is something that, we all can use some extra skill development on, because we can all be better at not only managing down, but also managing up.
Yeah, I agree with that. I noticed Scott's put a question in the comment. I'm just going to quickly read through that, because I think while you're working on to scale, yeah, okay. So interesting, handling contraction. Great point. So there's a couple of things here that come out. Contraction happens. We've been through it before. We're going to go through it again. The economy goes in cycles. We know that this contraction was probably not predicted as much as we had thought it would be. I think the pandemic, if we looked at a macro picture, we'll see as a blip in the future. What's going on with the global economy at this moment? Hey, we may not have been able to predict. So contractions here. But bear in mind, it will come back in. The economy will improve at some stage. It may not feel like it today, but likewise, it's raining outside in the UK, but I know the sun will come out tomorrow. I believe that's the case. So it's about having the belief on those things. But how do you handle contraction? The key here is, Scott, is actually understanding what is it you can do as a business. How do you understand the skills that you need in your business? And it might be a case of reducing your headcount. Because, we always say that, but actually reducing or looking at flexible ways of working. How can you put people on different terms? How can you reduce the hours people are doing, but still keep them employed on a part-time basis? Because actually you need to be able to scale up when the economy turns around again, when people start knocking on your door. We know in the UK, we've had a bit of a number of house price increase over the last few years, and it's going to continue. So the market is still buoyant. We often follow the US in the way the economy goes, so I expect we'll be tracking the same as the US in the future. But I think being small enough to take on roles is key, but having more people enough to do the job is quite hard. So you've just got to look at what's the functional need with the people you've got, and just balancing that capacity, understanding what's the maximum you can put in your pint glass, and understanding what maximum you can drive people to, because you know how long it takes to do a mortgage application, you know what the market's like, and looking at the systems you can put in place as well. You've got to balance people with systems at this stage, but I think it's all about contract when you can, but also look at keeping people available so when the market comes back, you're ready to jump.
There was another question that was posed in the Q&A by Patricio. I'm not sure I understand the question. Patricio, would you like to help? I'm going to allow you to speak if you'd like to help us better understand your question about funding, debt, and equity.
Yeah, that's true. Thank you very much and congratulations on the presentation. That's regarding how about when the founder has a lot to do with getting money for the company. It could be debt, it could be equity, but a lot of times, sometimes go into that area as well.
Yeah, okay. So you're talking about funding the company. So to me, that's about long-term equity growth. So whether it's debt funding or equity funding, that's a black activity in my language, because blue is about short-term revenue. It's about building the product, delivering the product, marketing the product. The black piece there is around how do I help the owner step up into that space. I hear the same when it comes to people wanting to sell their business as well. So I did a lot of work back in 2004 through 10, looking at business sales. And I think the same applies. You have to allow the business owner space to go and do that activity, and therefore they have to empower the team, develop the team, scale up the team to enable them to take on the work that's needed. So they can get out in the marketplace and have the conversations with brokers, have the conversation with investors, knowing the business is going to run smoothly. Because the biggest problem I saw, especially in the business sales issue, was where the business owner didn't enable the team to start with. They took their foot off the gas in the business, and the business stalled while they're having the conversations without selling the business, and therefore the sale fell through. I think the same applies in the funding market. You need to get your systems in place. You need to empower the people. You need to train the people. You need to put better systems in place now so you can step out and fund the business. Now, here's another key as well. If you're looking at valuing a business, we always talk about valuation equals profit times a multiple. My belief is getting these things right increases your multiple of your business. If you get the increase on your multiple, you're also going to get hit on your profit because revenue up, cost down. But the multiple gives you a different element to it as well, because you can increase multiple faster, and that will give you a higher valuation on your business. Therefore, it's better to get your business system set up before you go out funding, because then you've got a business that's worth more to those investors, and you can go through a cycle of investment on a better footing.
All right, Lenka, I saw that you had your hand raised. I don't know if you still have a question. If you do, I'm happy to have you speak up. Please let me know. I'll allow you to talk. Lenka? No?
Hello, Lenka?
If not, that's okay.
No.
All right, Phil, we have reached the top of the hour, so I will be very sensitive to everyone's time. I want to thank, obviously, Phil for a great presentation. You can actually learn more about Phil, and you can contact him. His email address is phil@igniumconsult.com. You can obviously also find him on LinkedIn. Just search Phil Rose. As always, we encourage you to use the Align software to implement some of these great business habits, setting priorities, really focusing your time and your energy on the things that are going to help you grow and scale your business. As always, if you need assistance or information, please be sure to ask your Align advisor or simply email us at support@aligntoday.com. Thanks again. We hope that you will join us for our next coach webinar, which I think should be in the month of August. We're going to take a short summer holiday for July, but till then, we hope that you have a great day. And Phil, thanks again so much for your time and for the presentation.
You're welcome, Eugene. Thank you. And I should have mentioned, Align is a great way of managing your business to make your life easier. Gets more out of your cup every day. So thank you for reminding me of that one.
Thanks, Phil. Take care, everybody. Yes, this will be shared. This has been recorded. Phil's going to pass along his slides, and we will email all of you a link to the recording and that documentation. Thanks, Ken. Take care, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.